God bless everybody today. It is April 2nd of 2023. This was an update on a video I did on March 20th, I believe, which showed that I thought, and still do, that Bitcoin was moving into a head and shoulders pattern and that we could potentially see Bitcoin completely drop below 10,000 down in this area. But based on this drop that I had talked about before, that it could maybe even go negative. And I'll show you why I believe that is the case. So this is the weekly chart for Bitcoin. And you can see I've got a number of lines on here. I'll explain what those lines are fairly quickly, and so you can understand where this is all going. And so if you look at these three areas, this area here, this area here, and then another area down here, you'll realize that there's three sets of head and shoulder patterns. At least that's what I see, and others may interpret it differently. So this is the left shoulder of the first set of patterns, the head, the right shoulder, and what they call the neckline. Then you'll notice that I draw a line from the neckline down to where the actual drop of the stock went. In this case, it's Bitcoin. So I wanted to show you the drop from the neckline down. And this is basically where, it breaks below the neckline and drops completely down. You'll realize that if you look at the other two that I'm going to show you, this drop is similar in the second one and potentially could drop the same in the third. And you can see that here and here. So in the second set of patterns here of the head and shoulder, you have a left shoulder, a top of the head, a right shoulder, and a neckline, and then a similar drop. And this gap between here and here and here and here are exactly the same, basically. So what I saw was on March 20th, I did that video that we had started to form this left shoulder, that we had come up into a head, and we're forming the head right now, that we're going to drop down below the neckline just a little, just as you see it happen here. And then it's going to form the right shoulder, and then it's going to drop down like it has here. And so this is the left shoulder, the head, the right shoulder, the neckline, and the potential drop. And now this line here is the lower support line that runs pretty much underneath everything. So if it falls through that, it's going to probably drop out completely, and it could go negative. And what happens if it goes negative? Will Bitcoin survive? I don't know at that point. They're trying to nationalize these cryptocurrencies, and I don't know, since it is a global phenomena. Bitcoin's been out there for a while. It's institutionalized, so I don't know if it would actually fall out. It would survive maybe a few of the other alts or like Ethereum. So we got to watch that. But if this drop is similar, then it could go negative, and you could see based on this chart that it could go actually, $2,000 or $3,000 negative. It's hard to see that because I can't go any further down on the chart. Now, two other things I wanted to show you on this chart I think are extremely important. This top support, or top resistance line, goes from here to where I said it would run down through here, and then it would cross over here, but it wouldn't allow this to move up past, let's say, about 29,000. And I hadn't shown you this on the other chart, but you'll realize that there's another resistance line that it's fighting right now. And this is a major resistance. Both these are massive resistances on this, this head that's forming here. So you've got this resistance line that runs completely under the chart, and you've got a resistance line that runs over the chart, and it's bumping its head up against both of these. And this is why I don't believe that we're going to, now it did get, Bitcoin did get up about 120 or 60, something like that, but it fell back down right immediately. And that was because somebody came in and did a buy. You'll notice that it spiked at that moment and then it fell off fairly quickly. So it was manipulated. But in general, you'll notice that this is not going to go above that 29,000 mark. And that massive support line that runs through the whole chart falls just where the top of the head is. And so this is like an airplane coming up and hitting concrete clouds, and it gets repelled, and then the turbulence drives it down. And so what's going to happen, and I've been talking about this for a while, when I originally did the video, which was, now we're in a day chart. So each of these lines are a day. Okay, so if I blow this up just a little, hopefully I can do this without destroying the chart. You'll notice that each of these are a day, okay? And so when I was back here and I said this was forming a head, it's not going above here, it's going to hit its head up here. And look, how many times it tested this line. Now it's going down. Look at that. You see the chart. And on the last 2 to 3 days, it's moving down, okay? It's going to come down. It's going to retest the support line. It's going to come back up. And so I said it dropped down just maybe below 20 grand in 7 to 10 days, I'm guessing. I don't know, based on this and the center, based on this and the drop. This is going to be a similar drop over here probably, maybe not as extreme, but I believe once it starts it will drop off fairly quickly. It'll retest this support line, which is below 20,000. As you can see, 20,000. It's going to come back up, it's going to hit this line, and that's going to retest around 24, maybe 25 at the maximum, and then it's going to fall and it's going to drop down based on that chart gap down there. So you're going to see this chart, if I get it to manipulate here, I guess that is the furthest I can manipulate it here. Let me do it this way. It will drop down, come up, and then it will fail. Now if it drops through the support of about 6,000, 5,500, somewhere around down in here, then we could see. Now, like I say, I don't know if Bitcoin can fail because it's institutionalized and it's globalized. But it would wipe most of the other alts off the map, and you would then consolidate these down to maybe a half dozen or less. And you might see Doge or Ethereum or XRP or a few of these other ones survive. I don't know which ones would survive. Ethereum and Bitcoin would be the two I would bet on, but I'm not a financial advisor, and so I don't want you to crypto's one of those things that if it goes negative, they could break the private crypto industry and nationalize it as they bring this new system out. So a report just came out on Markets Insider. Norel, I'm probably butchering his name, Rabini, indicates that we should brace for meltdown as stressors lead to what they call a doom loop in the economy. And so this is going to be a massive downturn. We're moving into some of the things you have to watch are the commercial property sectors, the banking sectors, and these potential bank runs and how that's going to affect us as we move forward. But this dune loop, if you look at the definition, it basically describes a scenario in which one negative factor creates another negative factor, which in turn worsens the first or creates a third, similar to a vicious cycle. Talked about how this birth pains and sorrows will just continually get worse and worse and worse until we have potentially an economic collapse, because you have a beast system coming in fairly soon, within the next year or two, excuse me. And so we need to watch these charts, because if this actually does potentially collapse, and we see this Bitcoin chart play out in the next 30 to 45 days, that could really change a lot of stuff out here. And the last thing I think I'll mention is the 2-year Treasury or bond. I talk about this a lot. We saw that 2-year move up past 5%, then it basically dropped 100 points or more, went down to, what was it, about 3.77, and now it's pushed back up to 4.1. And I keep saying that the Treasury, or the Powell, the Fed, has been moving with the 2-year bond. So that's why a lot of people thought he should cut or pause here, because when this fell out, because if you know anything out here, he's following this 2-year bond, and that's where his core, he's trying to get his core terminal rate to. This is starting to move back up, and so the question is, when May hits, is he going to continue to raise? Because if he does raise another 0.25, that would send a signal that he's not going to be able to probably cut this year, and that would then also shock the markets, and that would turn the markets down. So just keep an eye on this 2-year bond. I believe this will do sort of a meld up, or because as the bonds actually move up, they're negative to the banks and different things like that. So when this keeps moving up, it's pushing up all the other rates and stuff like this, and that's what's forcing Jay Powell to actually keep moving the rate up. And so he slowed down, because when this fell, he thought, I think in his mind, he thought that it's still going to move up, and so I'm going to, as I move out in this chart, and this moves up, I'm going to stay above it. So the Fed rate went to 5%, and so will this 2-year bond rate move up to about 5% in the next month or so? We'll see how that moves. So anyway, we'll see how this plays out. Now one last thing I will mention, each of these head and shoulders are going to look a little different. You're moving down into an ascending wedge here, into this apex. And so it's squeezing between these two resistance, or this resistance and the support line. And so it's not going to be this massive build up here. It's going to be a smaller build, and it's going to play out potentially even faster, because it's bouncing down in between these two lines. This resistance line, which is a major resistance line above it, and the support line here, and then it's also fighting this resistance line here, which if it was above it would be a support line, but because it's below it, it's a resistance line. So hopefully that makes any sense to you. And so as this plays out, it's going to drop down, come up, hit this, and then it's going to drop out, and based on the chart and the last two drops, it will drop potentially negative, or at least hit the support line and bop back up, which would be around 5,500 to 6,000. God bless everybody, and have a great night.